and log on and get ready to roll. So just be patient with us. We'll get ready to roll here and introduce ourselves just in a little while. Thank you. Welcome, Dr. Marco.
Hello, good to be here.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're just waiting a little longer for some of your classmates and some other folks to join. We have a full boat here tonight. We're really excited to spend some time with you all. Bear with us. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. I'm loving all our guests chiming in here. They're rolling in pretty steady now. Nice. Nice. Gets the shout out. How do you get one? Hi, everybody. Welcome if you're just joining. We're going to wait just a few more minutes for some of your classmates to join, and then we'll get started. Thanks for being patient. Yeah, people are still joining at a pretty good pace here, so we're just gonna hold on just another minute or two. Okay, I'm just waiting for the dings to stop coming in at a pace that's disruptive, but it's fantastic to see so many people joining us. So that's a win. But we're gonna get started here. It's 8:33 Eastern Standard Time, and I don't want to wait any longer. Look, my name is Jeff Winchell, and I'm one of the academic and industry relations team members here at Aspen Dental, along with some of my colleagues, Maggie Maurer and Chelsea Shellian. They're both on as well. But we invited two special guests here this evening, and we're going to get into some introductions in a moment. Um, tonight's event is called Aspen Dental Virtual Learning Series. They're getting involved in growing your professional network version of this edition, if you will. And we're really excited because we got two great doctors to introduce and share their stories. Um, just a couple, kind of housekeeping. First of all, thank you all for joining us on a Monday night, and thank you to our doctors. These things are really, really helpful, and I think that a couple of the panelists will kind of talk through obviously all the events that they've gotten accustomed to and know Aspen Dental, and I think one of them actually had a really good experience with one of the virtual learning series events when she was in school, if I'm correct. So big thanks for that. Tonight we're discussing obviously the importance of getting involved during dental school and growing your network. But before that, I want to take a moment to just say that there's the chat button and it's very active. And so while we're going to have a little fun here getting to know our dentists and kind of their backstories, I truly encourage you all to utilize that chat button and ask any questions you want at any time. I have two, the very best working the chat room, and they're going to making sure that we get all your questions answered, regardless of what the topic is, right? So tonight we're talking about your personal journeys, but at the same time, we want you to walk away with whatever information you want to retrieve here tonight. So without further ado, I want to make sure that you get a good idea of who our panelists are. And we'll go with the ladies first, and Dr. and Rivera can introduce herself. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everyone. I'm
Yes.
Dr. Samantha Rivera. I graduated from Tufts Dental School. Shout out to all the Tufts attendees tonight. Great to see some familiar names there. I came from District 1. Sorry, Dr. Marco, best district in ASDA.
Hey.
What else? I graduated from USF, coming from bachelor's and kind of moving back. I was a dental assistant prior to attending dental school. I worked as a dental assistant for 2 years until I decided to join dental school. I sat in a panelist like this last year, and I'm excited to kind of give that same insights as Dr. Pugliese did with me last year and Dr. Tucker.
Two great Tufts grads, right? Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Rivera. And let's meet Dr. Marco.
What's up, guys? Dr. Marco here. First off, no, District 5 is the best. I don't know what you're talking about here. So let's clear the air on that. So five's a handful. But yeah, Dr. Marco here from Hot Springs, Arkansas. I went to University of Arkansas for undergrad, so go Hogs. And then ironically went to LSU down in New Orleans for dental school, so go Tigers. Graduated from there, moved to Missouri, worked in Central Missouri for about a year with Aspen, and now I own a practice in Lee Summit, which is just south of Kansas City.
Wonderful. Well, listen, thank you both. I appreciate you coming today, and we're going to do some Q&A, but I really got to get this off of my chest. If you're an arc, they're both SEC schools. If they play each other, where's your heart lie?
Oh, Arkansas. That's easy.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like
All right. Dog your
I'll
heart.
root for LSU as long as they're not playing against Arkansas.
Got it.
But
All right.
it's nice because usually at least one team will be good in a certain sport. So it's like I always have like a winning team to root for. But
Nice. That's actually cool. All right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the virtual learning series, getting involved and growing your professional network. And we're going to start pretty simple. And so, again, we'll start with Dr. Rivera. So, Dr. Rivera, what inspired you to apply to a dental school?
Thanks, Jeff. So I grew up not having a dentist, and I actually migrated from the Philippines to the US at age 13 and didn't know the importance of dental care that much until I landed a job in dentistry. I was working as a restaurant, met my mentor working as a restaurant, and I was just right off the bat, I was like, what do you do? And he was like, I'm a dentist, come shadow me. Shadowed, I loved it, offered me a job, and how could I say no? Love the confidence he brings back to patients, love his demeanor. And I kind of just pictured myself being in his shoes, and he said, I think you can do it. I believe in you. And just that faith that he instilled in me inspired me to apply to dental school. And Tufts was my first choice, my first acceptance,
Nice.
and I could not have been happier.
Awesome. And so it's fair to say that you met your first dental mentor before you even got into dental school.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. And how long would you say it took you to quote unquote get involved with school activities and organized dentistry and student
Right.
organizations?
So I knew I wanted a leadership role. I didn't just want to go to school just to go to school. I wanted something that would maximize my dental school experience. And I had met my second mentor along the way, which was my big. He is a D23. He said, don't join anything, just join ASDA. Don't join anything but ASDA, 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 ASDA. So he was really big on that. So I said, hey, I'll give it a try. So I ran for the class representative. I was elected the first year. I decided to run again, loved it so much. I got elected the second year, and then I went on to being the president and past president my third and fourth year. So within those years, I got involved in district, and then I attended a lot of national conferences, and I knew that it was the right path when it comes to being involved in maximizing your dental school experience.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so you took various positions while in school. So just
Yeah.
name a few of those positions.
So besides ASDA, I was very involved in that. I was also involved on the Massachusetts Dental Society. So I'm not only networking with dental students, but also networking with dentists across Massachusetts. I
Nice.
was part of the membership committee. I was involved in the Asian Dental Organization. I was also a teaching assistant for clinic and fixed pros operative, some basic science courses like neuro and endo. What else? I was really busy. I was doing dog sitting, and I was also working for a yoga studio. So I was doing a lot of things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of positions. What was your most challenging position outside of just school?
I would say being the ASA president, not only is that it's fun, the most fun, it's also the most challenging in terms of holding a cabinet member of 70 members. Being able to hold that standard of Tufts and represent Tufts on a district level, national level, it takes a lot of responsibility. Meeting with the dean, making sure our budget's on track, whether that's at Tufts or at a district level. Being responsible for 5 dental schools across District 1. In terms of planning events, I think that was most challenging. It felt like a second job without it being a second job. Yeah.
Nice. And what was the most fun? What was the most fun position you held?
Besides ASA, I really like dog sitting. I think that was honestly
I think we
um
have somebody else from our team, Miss Chelsea, that would probably agree with you.
yeah, it was such an outlet for me just to get off studying ASA and then I don't know, just focus on some dogs.
Chelsea, anything to add there?
I wish I could. I just volunteer and foster for free, so I should probably start trying to earn money doing it. But instead, I just have 5 dogs for free. Cost me money. That's really.
awesome.
I love that you did that. That's awesome.
Especially in Boston, people love their dogs, man. I tell you that.
Final question of this first round, Doc. You travel a lot with ASDA, correct?
I did. I traveled quite a lot with ASDA and also on the personal, just on personal
What was your
travel.
most memorable trip with ASDA?
Probably going to Washington, D.C. That was
Advocacy?
my first time advocacy, yeah, lobbying for laws that affect dental students, our profession. I think just to be a part of that, have a voice in that, have a say in what's going on with our profession, I think that's very impactful. Not only that, I got to go with Tarina as a student. She was only a member at that time, and just seeing her grow through ASDA, her leadership, and now she's the national vice president. I think I don't know if I could say I was one of her mentors, but she was definitely one of my mentees.
Sounds like you were then. Cool. All right, we're going to switch gears and ask Dr. Marco some questions here.
Thank you.
Doc, same question for the first one. What inspired you to apply and attend dental school?
So I actually really wanted to be a cardiologist. Don't ask me why. I just thought the heart was really cool. But my parents my parents were in the restaurant industry. Neither of them went to college or anything. So they couldn't help me out directly, but they had a business partner who was an oral surgeon. So I was a freshman in high school, and they said, go shadow him for a day. I made it to the second patient before I passed out on the floor, cold turkey, like watching some wisdom teeth extractions. And I was like, I don't know if this is for me.
Got some smelling salts around there?
Yeah. So then I shadowed him again, made it to like the 5th patient this time. And then, gradually just built it up because I found it to be really interesting and it was a nice balance, but I was like, I just didn't know if I could stomach it. And then ironically, I get to dental school and, first year you're taking all your basic sciences. I failed the mess out of cardio in anatomy and physiology.
Yeah, the journey through that heart is hard.
Yeah, so I was like, thank God we went with teeth instead. But no, the more that I inculcated myself with the profession, the more I realized like it's all the benefits of being a doctor and still getting to help people, but without having to take call and dealing with so much bureaucracy of it all. So I really like the lifestyle of it, getting to work with your hands every day. So thankfully I just had some really good mentors throughout my time.
Who was your very first mentor that you kind of latched onto and helped you through the process?
I would say it's that oral surgeon that I shadowed. His name is Darren Pretzel. Real great guy. He practices in Hot Springs, Arkansas. A little bit different because he's an oral surgeon instead of a general dentist. So his experience was a bit different, but he was still able to answer a lot of questions for me. And then I would say Jeffrey Kirst.
Remember Jeff Kirst?
Yeah, Jeff's a great guy. I essentially, when people talk about like my career progression and some of the questions we're going to get into here, I'm sure it's like I just try to emulate everything that Jeff did. So it's like if Jeff was the ASDA rep, I wanted to be the ASDA rep. Like if Jeff was trustee, I wanted to be trustee.
That's awesome. Very cool. And how long did it take you to get involved in some student activities?
I would say pretty similar timeline to Sam here, where showed up D1 year and became the ASDA representative, and then just climbed the totem pole from there. So ASDA rep D1 year, ASDA vice president 2nd year, and then we made it a rule to where you couldn't be trustee and president at the same time, which thank God is just too much work. So I chose to be the District 5 trustee instead. So it took a step away from my local chapter to run operations there. And then 4th year decided not to run for the executive committee and just take a step back. I needed to focus a bit more on school and wanted to prepare myself for what the next chapter was going to be in my career.
Awesome. And what was the most challenging role you had?
I would say it was when I was VP of our local ASDA chapter, because I was I was at D1 when COVID hit. So like that March. So then we had elections around that time. And then going into that 2nd year when I was VP, it's like, how do you run an ASDA chapter and keep up all these traditions when you're going through all these lockdowns? Now, granted, in Louisiana, things were not near as strict as the rest of the country. We still had our fun and did our things, but trying to go through all the bureaucracy of the school, and like we even created some new events, and how do we navigate these virtual series, like things we're doing tonight. Like it can certainly be done. It just took a lot of creative outlets, and that was by far the most challenging thing for me. But we had a really strong team.
What was the most fun position?
Oh, District 5 trustee for sure. It was like just traveling the country, presenting at different conferences, working on meaningful legislation, advocating on behalf of the students. It was just a great time. Just the people that I got to work with. I mean, a lot of them actually work for Aspen now. So when I was in Vegas, like I got to see a lot of folks that I used to work with in ASDA. So it's a really full circle moment there.
It's funny you say that. I got a text earlier this morning from somebody that I haven't seen in like 3 years that she was National Speaker of the House and Vice President when she was in school at Midwestern, and she's actually going to the national leadership to, talk, not even in Aspen's behalf, just to talk about a different topic. I think she's talking about ethics or something. Yeah. So, that's cool. Yeah, I loved it. Just as a side note, like, some of the organization might not admit this, but ASDA, and you guys had mentioned a lot of times, in my opinion, is one of our biggest and best partnerships to grow all the way, to the pace that we are today. So it's just an amazing organization that I latched onto 12, 13 years ago and haven't, and obviously you guys are right here. So we haven't loosened our grip on it. All right, cool. And what was the most fun you've ever had on a trip with ASDA?
I would say it was Louisville, Kentucky. So we were there. It was the annual conference, and it was like the final meeting for us as a board. So, it was a lot of bittersweet moments, a lot of, happy tears, sad tears, everything in between the fun dance moves, because that was the last time after a year's worth of work that we were all going to be together. So, plus, Louisville is just a great city overall. And ironically, I almost went to dental school there. That was one of the places that I interviewed. So it was weird coming back as a conference attendee and looking around. It's like, oh yeah, like that's the place I had pizza after my interview. So it was good.
Who introduced me to ASDA all those years ago?
Oh,
Dean of Students at Louisville. Good dude.
Nice. That's awesome.
He told me stop calling people like him and start getting involved with ASDA. And he gave me some content.
That's awesome.
So I fell in love with Louisville myself. That's awesome, man. All right, back to Dr. Rivera. Thank you, Dr. Marco.
Absolutely.
Dr. Rivera, what drives you to be so involved? Wearing so many hats.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of time. There's always something you can do. At the end of the day, we're all here to become dentists, here to become compassionate dentists, care for our patients. But I think there's more to just the studying and just being in dental school. I think there's so many ways you can use your talents, your leadership skills, and put it to use. I think that's what ASDA has taught me, and that's what I've hopefully passed on to the next members that are going to pass it on to other members.
Nice. And how did being so involved help you during school?
Definitely made me well-rounded. It allowed me to take a lot of leaps of faith, especially now landing my new job. It's easy for me to say yes rather than being afraid and say, oh, maybe I need to get a residency or something like that. I think it allowed me to say yes a lot and also be out of my comfort zone and meet so many amazing people along the way.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What are your most? What is an achievement you're most proud of?
I was really proud of graduating dental school. That's one.
Listen, it should be first and foremost, right?
Tough 4 years. But beyond that, I was awarded the National District Delegate from my district. I think it just brought all the culmination of my hard work and efforts, led me through who I am now, where I am, like all the efforts I've did for the past 4 years.
Nice. Dr. Marco, what drives you to be so involved during school?
Yeah, I think some of it was just needing a creative outlet outside of the academics, because I mean, you can only read the notes so many times. You can only drill on so many plastic teeth. Like you got to have a life outside of the clinic. And I think in addition to that, one, what we talked about earlier is emulating anything that Jeff did. But two, it was, am I a better person today than I was yesterday? I find myself to be a rather competitive person, but not necessarily competitive with those around me, just competitive with myself. So just challenging myself of, maybe I can run for trustee. Like maybe I can take on this job part-time. Like maybe I can create this podcast or whatever it may be. Just challenging myself in ways outside of the dental field, because like Doc was saying, it just makes you so much more of a well-rounded individual.
Nice. And what is there any specific moments or achievements that you're most proud of?
So my classmate and I, we were roommates D1 year, and we, as a COVID project, we started a podcast. It was called the Pre-Dental Podcast. And it started out as this fun little side project of maybe some people will listen to this. And then we ended up getting thousands of listeners each episode. And it used to be this super formal, we'd videotape ourselves and have these long scripts. And then, as we got busier and busier, he got married, unfortunately. I mean, I love her, but just spent less time together. But that just became our bonding time. And, I don't even know what the metrics are on the podcast at this point. Some of my most fond memories of getting to hang out with one of my best friends.
That's really cool, man. That's long lasting too. I'm going to ask this question, but it also came in from one of the students and our guests here as well. What advice, and I'll start with Dr. Rivera, what advice do you give to students, to get more involved and to grow in professional networks?
So yeah, definitely get more involved in something that, be intentional with it. Find something you'll grow personally and professionally. It was ASDA for me. It may be some other different associations for you, and that's fine. As long as it allows you to become a, well-rounded person, expand your network. I think the most important thing that came out of ASDA was the networking aspect of it. I was able to meet great students, dentists, a lot of companies from all over the country, whether that's, Aspen or disability malpractice insurance that you need, a lot of things that you need after you graduate. Lots of connections that I made there. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Say yes, more yes than no's.
This one's going to go straight to you, Dr. Marco. What were some of the topics you covered on your podcast? Because this gentleman wants to start one as well.
Oh, man. So our most popular episode that we ever made was called Accepted, Waitlisted, and Rejected. And it was and we launched it on Acceptance Day, and it got thousands and thousands of views. It was awesome. But it was essentially what to do in each of those topics or in each of those situations. But it was funny because the podcast grew as we grew in dental school. So as D1s, we talked about what it was like to go to the sim lab and what it was like to apply to dental school and interviews. And then D2, what it was like to see our first patient. Third year is what was it like to live in New Orleans, and what was it like to start job hunting. And then fourth year, we interviewed some people that were applying to residency, talked about, Clayton getting married, just being intentional with it. I think that's when our podcast really took off, is when we quit reading from a script so much and started just having a conversation about things that we would want to hear about, giving advice to our younger selves, essentially.
Well, that's funny because what advice do you have for starting conversations as it relates to small talk during networking?
Yeah, I think everyone is worth a conversation. I'll never forget when I was 17 years old, I met President Obama, and wow. I was starstruck. I was in the West Wing of the White House. It was this whole crazy deal.
Yeah. How'd you get in there?
Yeah. And I was just oh my God, just looking up at him. He's also very tall. But it's I remember after it was kind of anticlimactic. I was oh, that guy wears a pants and belt just like me. Try not to be too intimidated by people. Everyone is just a human. We all eat dinner. We all go to sleep. Don't talk about the weather, but ask them where they're from and what their favorite thing to do is. Just be intentional. And I think some of that comes down to figuring out who you are as a person. If some of you tried to act the way that I act, it would probably be like weird and creepy, but like, like you got to just learn how to be yourself. And I think when you can hone in, like, if you have a more introverted, awkward personality, then embrace that, because like that could be a really cool, fun thing. So try just to be yourself. Simple questions. Don't ask yes or no questions, but things that people can elaborate on, or Aspen talks about double clicking questions. So like, oh, like you grew up in Hot Springs. That's neat. Like, what was your favorite thing to do there? Just try and get to know them and be intentional.
Dr. Rivera, anything to add there?
I think he touched it spot on.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Doc.
How has ASDA, and this one we'll go with Dr. Rivera then, how has ASDA impacted you after graduating dental school?
It landed me to my dream job right now. So I held a lot of events, networking with Aspen, social events where the end of the year social, senior send-offs, alumni events, a lot of things going back and forth on the back scene stuff. People students just attend the events. They don't know what happens behind the scenes. So I work with a lot of that behind the scenes. So I had a one-on-one personal relationship with Maggie and Maeve. They're Aspen recruiters. So when I was job searching, there was a job available in Orlando where I am now. And Maeve just put me on right away and go, "Hey, Doc, I have an interview set up for you. Are you available at this time, this date?" And I said yes. So I hop on a flight right away, and I was able to meet the owner, Doc, and connected with him. And a week after, I was offered a job. So it goes to show how much networking has a benefit in terms of, job searching. I think that's one of the most takeaways I could get from my position in ASDA.
So how did your time as a dental assistant help with that transition?
I learned to appreciate dental assistants a lot. They're the backbones of the office, honestly. No, seriously. They were, in school, you're your own dental assistant, treatment plan coordinator, so you have an idea of it. But in real life, they really do most of the work. I would say 80% of the work. X-rays, you come in there, just do your diagnosing and everything. They clean up. You don't have to set up and everything. It's so nice. It's so nice. Learn to appreciate them a lot, for sure.
Dr. Marco, we have a bunch of thank you very much. We have a bunch of questions coming in, but I do want to give you a few minutes to talk through your transition from dental school to where you are now. And the reason I say that is because he's going to brag upon himself a little bit, but we're going to give him the floor to do so. He's graduated in 2023 and already owns his own office. And so just talk a little bit how that transition went for you and what some of the students on here tonight can expect.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a wild journey. I initially was maybe looking at a partnership 2 to 3 years out, and then maybe owning my own office one day. And now here we are a year later owning one. Talking about a second, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm trying. But anyway, so started as an associate with Aspen. And I think the biggest thing for me was be coachable. My mentor had a lot to teach me, Dr. Brett Parrott. And sometimes I had some pushback of like, no, it's like I got these whizzies, like don't worry about it. And then I did not got it. So like really just be coachable, but continue to push yourself each and every day. If you decide to join Aspen, like take all the CE that's there. Like you couldn't watch all the CE if you tried. Like there's that much available. There's live sessions. There's hands-on training. Like there's mentorship opportunities. Like I just got done training a doctor in my office for a month. And I think she's better off now than she was before. But I think also being intentional with what you want out of this career. So I made it clear very early on that I wanted ownership opportunities. And I expressed that with my regional manager and my practice owner. So they moved me up to a managing clinical director position to see how I would handle that. And I think I handled it well. I mean, it got me here. So, with more power comes more responsibility, the staff. Okay, so I will say this, let me back up. As the doc in the office, like you're a leader. I don't care if you're just an associate or whatever it may be, like people are always going to come to you. You always have to make decisions. But as you climb the totem pole from associate to managing clinical director to partner or practice owner, it just gets a bit more serious, and you have to have more phone calls and make bigger decisions. So I think, although I did it in a year, I still did it under the guidance of a lot of good mentors. And I think the biggest thing for me, which, trying to humble myself here, is like, I really had to learn to listen to people, because I thought I had all the answers and I thought I knew everything. And there were times where I was highly advised not to make certain decisions, but I made those decisions anyways. And then it bit me in the butt. And then those same people had to bail me out of those positions. So like, people in Aspen are here for like, they have jobs for a reason. Like, they're supporting you for a reason, and you got to learn to listen to your mentors. And it's this weird balance of taking risk, but also not taking too much risk. But the way that Aspen does that is, like, when you start with the company, you're going to go to Chicago for a week, and you're going to go on this new doctor journey, and you're going to be surrounded by other individuals. So if we're going to talk about networking, it doesn't happen just in the space of ASDA or your local chapter at school. Like, if you join Aspen, now you're in a cohort of 30, 40 other doctors from around the country that you're getting to share ideas with. You're all going through the same mentoring and teaching opportunities in Chicago. Plus, you get paid to go to Chicago for a week. Like, how fun is that? And then you get to go back to your office for about 6 months, and then you go to Chicago again, some with the same doctors, some with new doctors, just depending on scheduling. And you go through more advanced training, and then from there, the sky's the limit. I think I've been to Chicago 3 or 4 more times since for more advanced training. And some of it is dentistry, like the denture steps through the Aspen model. But then a lot of it is how to deal with conflict resolution. Like, your staff members come to you with X, Y, and Z. Like, how do you handle those conversations? So, I think my experience with ASDA and throughout dental school prepared me with leadership opportunities. But I think Aspen is what truly polished me to get me to the ability to own a practice. And I'm still not perfect. Like, I'm still learning, and I still have meetings and mentorship and guidance. Like, the more you learn, the better you'll become. Just, you got to humble yourself.
Right. And, we'll get back to that, because there's some questions that are very much related to kind of your experience. Dr. Rivera, you're just a few months in. So how has your experience been so far?
Sure. Yeah, just barely 2 months in. I've prepped a lot of teeth, more than I did in dental school. I'll tell you that. I thought I would just be focused on a lot of fillings, but actually there's all this bread and butter sorts of dentistry that you'll come across with. You just never know what walks in that door. We have a very high demand office, so we see about 10 new patients a day. I went from seeing 3 patients a day to, when my doctor left for Vegas for the retreat, I was by myself. Didn't think I could handle that, but I was by myself for 2 days. And I went back. I was like, how many patients did I see? And I saw 18 patients on one day, and then 22 patients on the next day. So I was very impressed. I was really scared, but she was like, I'm 1 phone call away. You could do it. I was like,
Right.
all right, doc. I was like, all right, doc. That's the best part. You have someone that you can piggyback treatment plans with. The best part about Aspen is that there's no one pushing you to treatment plan XYZ. You have the full autonomy. Whenever you see a patient, your clinic, you own that patient. It's totally up to you how their direction's going to go from there, from this time that you met them until the time they get their treatment plan. You have your staff that supports you. The support is there, from treatment plan coordinators, hygiene. You don't get to do hygiene anymore, which is super nice. What else? Yeah, we have 3 to 4 assistants. It's really nice to see the first 3 weeks to just be able to shadow and see the pace of the office, learn how many columns you'll manage for production, how many columns you'll manage for new patients, and then how many columns you'll manage for overflow. And every time I want to try something, I could just be like, hey, doc, really want to try this case. If I get stuck, can you help me? And my MCD is always there to pick me up whenever I can't get a root tip out. So that's really nice. Yeah, the support is there, which is nice.
Nice. So there's some younger students here. So MCD is a managing clinical director or a lead dentist in the office. And so typically what happens, guys, is when you join Aspen Dental, you'll be paired with a mentor. Like we'll get into what a mentor is in a little bit, but your very first mentor is the person that's paired with you at your home office. And then hopefully you find others along the way. We're going to take a step back and answer some of the questions that are more related to the topic, but thank you all for that. Maria wants to know how important it is to be part of ASDA before graduating. Does it add more value to your resume in interviews when you're applying for jobs? Dr. Marco, why don't you take it first, and then we'll go to Dr. Robert.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a deal breaker of like, oh, like you weren't involved in ASDA, like I'm not going to hire you. But it sure does help. Like my how I ended up in Missouri with Aspen is purely because of the people that I met during my ASDA journey. Like if it were not for ASDA, I have no idea where I'd be practicing, but it would not be with Aspen just because I wouldn't have made the connections that I did. So, if you're not involved in ASDA currently, then first off, get involved. Like you should definitely do that. But I don't think it's a deal breaker necessarily because you want to be involved in things that you're passionate about. Because if you're doing it for the sake of doing it, then there's not really value in that. Versus if your passion is going to the local animal shelter and volunteering on Saturdays, then like you're probably going to make some connections there. And even then, it's just going to like make you feel more fulfilled. So I highly encourage it, but it's not necessarily like I wouldn't not hire someone because they weren't involved in ASDA.
Dr. Rivera?
Yeah, it's not so much what the organization is, it's more so what you do and how that, influence you as a person, how that contributes to your growth.
Yeah. No, I love those answers, guys. And just for the audience and the guests here today, like as somebody part of the talent acquisition team, I would never hire or, you know, refer somebody over just because they were part of any specific organization or not. I think that these two here and some other people involved probably derive skill sets from that, which can translate into a job interview. So it's not what's on your resume; it's actually what you're building yourself, and building your own brand and that kind of thing. I hope I hope I didn't step out of bounds there, but I think that that's probably more the substance that people are looking for. I just think ASDA is a tool to help you get there. And guys, it's not just about ASDA either. You go on your website and you can join probably 30 different organizations in larger schools. So it's not just that one. Another question came in from Kim that she wants to know, how does networking within a corporate dentistry structure different from something you might experience in a private practice setting? Are there unique opportunities or challenges you've encountered? And probably both, but we'll go ahead and with Dr. Rivera, you go first.
So since I'm a brand new dentist, I have yet to attend all the conferences in the Chicago trip. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to. But coincidentally enough, my MCD, my mentor, is a Tufts grad. So that kind of just set the tone for us, and we just click off the bat. Yeah, maybe Dr.
There's a
Marco
lot
has
of
more
Tufts grads, aren't there?
insight.
There's a lot of Tufts grads out there. Dr. Marco, do you have anything to add on that networking within the organization as opposed to private practice settings and kind of creating your own opportunities there?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that with Aspen, like the world is your oyster. Like I always tell people, the office that you start at may not be the office that you end up at. And I'm living proof of that. Like never in a million years did I think I'd move to Missouri, but I did. And then even then, like I moved from central Missouri to just outside of Kansas City because Aspen has over 1,000 offices. And I felt like that was a better opportunity for me. But with that, it's, I don't know if in a regular like single owner private practice office, you would have like a regional manager and a territory director and a division vice president and a whole recruiting team and the marketing team. And, for me, like I'm a very extroverted social person. So one of the things I love about Aspen is all the connections that I get to make and all the people that I get to interact with in different facets of the organization. So I think at the end of the day, like we have our Aspen conferences, but there's also like the ADA hosts their own conference, like ADIA hosts their own conference. Like I know the ADA was just in New Orleans and I had a bunch of classmates that went to that. And it's like, you can still go as a part of Aspen. Like no one's stopping you from taking a trip down there. But I just think we also have our own settings that we meet at, and I've never had a bad time at an Aspen event. So
Cool. And so another question, I don't know if we answered this one or not through your guys' just elaborations, but what tips do you have for finding a good mentor after graduation, to help, kind of help with the actual practice as a dentist versus like, just kind of checking the box as a student? And so, Dr. Rivera, do you want to handle that one? What tips to find that good mentor for you?
I think for me, I still keep in touch with my mentor from dental school and my dental assisting experience. But for the most part, my mentors right now are my owner doc who trained me for three weeks, and then my MCD. I haven't really gotten as far as like searching beyond for that.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted you to go first, because Dr.
Yeah.
Marco has gone through a lot of those events and probably has picked up a mentor or two along the way. So what did you do to go out of your way to find folks that can help you, whether it's clinically or just professionally? Yes.
me, okay,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah. So I think learning how to utilize Aspen's resources. So one of the common sayings we have is that anything that you need is always a phone call away. Like if I can't help you, I can point you in the direction of someone who can. Like we have orthodontic guys, we have oral surgeon folks, we have implant folks. Like there's always someone along the pipeline that knows exactly how to handle a situation. Like I've literally been in the middle of a surgery and had to FaceTime someone before. But I think even outside of that, when you're finding mentors, I think figuring out what you like to do in dentistry, because I love surgery, but I understand that's not the case for everyone. And there's some docs that are more passionate about veneers and cosmetics. Like I would probably not be a good mentor for one of those docs who wants to do veneers all day. Like I've done some cases, but they're not my favorite thing to do. So figuring out what your intentions are, and then, if you're talking to a recruiter, just talking to doctors at an event, like figuring out who lines up with that.
Cool. Great question here, and both of you definitely apply to this one. And so we'll go with Dr. Rivera first. Word for word, did you guys have to deal with negotiating contracts in your first year out of practice? Did you have to hire a lawyer to help out and read the contracts and understand it? And how was the job search journey from the day you picked up Maeve's call to the time you started? That's you, Dr. Rivera.
Oh, me first? Okay. I did not hire a lawyer. I don't know if Dr. Marco did. I don't know if that was smart or what, but I felt really confident with the contract, and I actually had Dr. Pugliese look on my contract, who's also an Aspen doctor. So that was it for me as far as the lawyer thing out. I did negotiate only because I had another offer when I had a residency on, like literally in my hands that I could accept. Um, I would say there's nothing wrong with negotiating, just be like mindful that they could say no. So that's just my honest opinion about that. Um, just be intentional. Like, what can you offer? Why are you negotiating? Is there, something you can add to the team more than what they already assume you could? You are going to be a new doctor, so they know that you're someone that is trainable, teachable. Is there anything else you could add into that? How was the job search journey? Honestly, it was a phone call, it was a flight, and that was it. I got paired with my first job interview. I was supposed to just shadow, but I ended up doing more than that. I was assisting, I was really paying attention to what was going on. I even corrected, I think they were delivering an immediate denture after extraction, and I said, hey, this denture is missing a tooth. And I reached that, or I voiced out that concern to the dentist, Dr. Lacani, who's the owner doc. And he, I think, right away went to the lab tech and was like, hey, Dr. Rivera noticed this. Like, what's going on? Why'd you make this mistake? Blah, blah, blah. So I think, I mean, I was being respectful, but I just wanted to point it out because I was like, hey, this patient's going to come out with a front tooth out the door without anything to replace it, you know? So I did more than just shadowing. I think I stood out in that like sense.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
think
there,
that goes to Dr.
yeah,
Marco's point about, you're a doctor the day you step in that operatory. You didn't have your license and you were, playing doctor. So I love it. That's
yeah.
fantastic. I'm sure that won you a job offer, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, if you have a lot of job offers, just weigh out your pros and cons. Every office, every Aspen office is going to be different. Every contract's going to be different. So I mean, I think it would be best to get a lawyer, but for me, I didn't feel the need to.
Thank you. Dr. Marco? Do you want me
Yeah,
to read the question again?
I probably had a extremely unorthodox way of how I got a job at Aspen, so I'll try and condense this story down very quickly. But one, yes, I did have a lawyer. He said it was a very straightforward contract. He didn't change anything about it, so that was fine. But yeah, when it goes back to networking, like very long story short, I was invited to Miami for Aspen's leadership retreat 2 years ago as a student. Went there, had some interviews, was not going well. I had interviewed at a bunch of places that weren't Aspen, and none of those were going well either. And I was like, man, maybe I'm just going to be unemployed next year. I don't know. And then the very last night that I was there, I was standing at the bar and I saw a doc that I had met through an ASDA event. And I was like, hey, Dr. Joe, like, nice to see you. And he's like, Marco, like, what's up, bro? Like, I know you. And then he asked me what I was doing the next year. I said I didn't know. We talked for like 5 minutes. He made me a verbal offer, talked to his partner, doubled down on the verbal offer. We took some shots, and then I had a contract in my mailbox the next morning. And yeah, I signed it right then and there. I did not negotiate. I feel like I got the offer of a lifetime from Aspen, and they had also made it very clear that they also thought it was the offer of a lifetime. So like, yes, you can negotiate, but I think when you're getting a good deal, you just take it. What I just real quick, what I tell students all the time is like, as you graduate and learn more, your value as a doc goes up. So like as a new grad versus someone who's a year out versus someone who can place implants versus someone who has management experience of running their own office, like if as far as like earning potential, like you got to build up from that. Because I came out of dental school thinking, oh, I could do any surgery and run an office by myself day one, and now I'm a year and a half out and I own my own office, and there's some days where I question myself. So
It's awesome. There's a follow-up question with regard to like the contracts and how you're paid. And so I'll just ask you guys, like, so there was no term as far as how long you had to work there, and there was no repercussions for breaking that, correct?
Correct.
the only thing I had was my signing bonus. I had to stay for 1 year. So if I left within a year, I would have to pay like a prorated amount, but I could walk out the door and never come back legally and not have anything besides that.
And that's pretty typical, guys, for most of the letter of agreements that go out to our doctors. The reason why Dr. Rivera felt like she didn't need an attorney is we kind of make it pretty simple. And so there's no term as far as how long you have to stay, with a little asterisk, right? If you get a sign-on bonus or something like that. And there's no restricted covenant. So if either of these doctors here talking with you today felt like they wanted to, open up their own shop across the street, there's nothing saying they can't do that. So there's no restricted covenant and there's no terms, attached to the contract. In addition to that, and I don't want to quite get into compensation on this call, but I will say this, that it's not a production, it's not a collection, it's not anything out of your own two hands that you produce, but we pay our dentists in more of a collaborative way. For gross profit share of the entire office. So everybody who's a provider, anybody who's a clinician that does procedures, hygienists, general dentists, and specialists, all kind of draw from you draw from that, and the owner pays you a percentage of profit. And that's about as far as I'll go on that, because it's not a lot of time to get into it. But it's not based on collection or production or any algorithm of your own. It's more of a collaborative kind of team effort and how we get paid. I don't know if you two want to elaborate on that or if it's just for another time.
Work hard and you'll make bank. That's all I'm going to say. You will make big change. Just work hard.
I will say I do like the Aspen model, how you get paid, because there's no hogging big cases. You get to do dentistry, you come in, you get paid a certain amount per day, and the more you produce as a group, whether that's you, the associate, or the MCD, the more profit you get as a group. So there's that, you know, the good out of it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why we pay our doctors the way we do, and it all kind of stems from the ownership program. He gets opportunity like Dr. Marco to own his own office, and that's kind of where it kind of stems from philosophically. Good question here, guys. So, what do you think is one most important thing to consider when you have a contract in hand? And Dr. Rivera, why don't you go first, and then we'll go with Dr. Marco.
I would say, I mean, the contract itself was pretty straightforward. I could even translate it, but the hours, make sure you're comfortable working long hours, because you're going to be working. For me, I work Monday to Friday, or Monday to Thursday, 8 to 6, Monday to Friday, 8 to 1. I've only worked one Saturday since I worked, but it could depend which Saturdays you can work. As long as you're comfortable with that, then that's one thing. Location, you have to be mindful of where you're going to be. Make sure you have some support there, not only from the company itself, but I think family support is very important. I picked the Orlando location. It was the closest thing I could be with my family. I think the drawbacks is like, the clause is like when you can leave and stuff like that, kind of just like little minute things.
Cool. Dr. Marco?
Yeah, I would say the two biggest things is one, how do you get out of the job if things go south? And then two, what is your compensation like? You have to have those in writing. Like, don't if a doc is trying to tell you, oh, you could make up to X, Y, or Z, well, put it in writing. Or like, oh, like you're gonna make at least this amount, like put it in writing. Like if they're not willing to put it in writing, then they're not willing to guarantee it. And additionally, figuring out like, is there a non-compete? I have a buddy who signed a contract that if he quits his job, he can't work within a 50-mile radius of that office. So he essentially has to leave town or commute over an hour. And no one goes into a job thinking they're going to leave it, but life happens, and whether it's Aspen or not. So just making sure that if they're making any promises to you, that it's written down clear as day. And then personally, I would have a lawyer review it. Now with Aspen, it's a bit different because, I mean, so you keep bringing up Dr. Mark here. I was on the Aspen or the ASDA board with him. And it's funny, I sent him my contract and he was like, oh, bro, I had the same contract, just the numbers and location were different. Like that was the only difference. So it's pretty cookie cutter. So if you get a contract remotely similar to mine, then I can promise you my lawyer said it's good.
Cool. Look, we don't have a lot of time here. We have 5 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and put some compensation numbers into the chat here, just so you can kind of get an eyeball on them. But just so you can hear it out loud, our associate dentist on average makes somewhere between like 170 and 250. Our lead dentists, they mentioned that a few times, MCDs, managing clinical directors. There's a lead doctor in every single office. They make somewhere between like 200 and 450. Okay, and then we have owner dentists, and it really depends on, how profitable the offices are and how many you own, and if you have partners, and how many dentists you have and things of that nature. But obviously, the sky's the limit as it relates to ownership and multi-practice ownership. So, just to put it in perspective, we have doctors making as little as 170 grand full time, and as much as 3 million, probably even more at this point. So, of our 1,800 general dentists, everybody falls within there. And I think that Dr. Marco said it well. The harder you work, the more money you make, right? And the more effective you are at work, the smarter you are, the more money you make. So anybody that guarantees you very, very high coming out of school, especially, I'd be a little weary of that, right? Because you're going into an office that pays their doctors based on how well the office is doing. There's no other way to really do that in the long term. If the office isn't doing well, they can't afford to pay a doctor well. So keep that in mind. There's always that bell curve. But I think it is in your best interest to, when you're considering jobs, reach out to somebody like Dr. Marco and Dr. Rivera. Get a mentor, have them look over, especially if it's within the organization. They'll give you some good feedback on it. So that's kind of how I'll wrap things here. But I just, it's 9:27. I didn't want to leave here without really, really, a big, huge thank you to Dr. Marco and Dr. Rivera, because without you guys, these folks on the line here can't get get their right answers, right? So really, really appreciate it. I know you worked hard all day long. I know that you saw patients. That's not always easy, and coming out and spending time with us is really, really helpful, and we appreciate you so much. In addition, I really thank you all that joined us tonight, and we'll put all of our, contact information into the chat as well. You can reach out to us anytime you feel like it. Whereas, transparent as you can possibly be as an organization, and you can always find good mentors along the way. So again, thank you very, very much to Dr. Rivera. Thank you very much, Dr. Marco. But I will give you guys any final thoughts or advice on dental school as they're either finishing up or just starting their career. Dr. Marco, you want to go first?
Absolutely. So my Bay leader, he used to always tell us, keep the faith. Just, you are going to graduate dental school. You will find a solid job. Like, just keep the faith. I know it gets tough. I know studying for those exams feels overwhelming, but the hardest part is getting into dental school. Everything else you'll be able to figure out. So just, as someone who has made it to that other side and is now climbing the ranks and has an own office, like, just keep the faith, baby.
Yeah, I love it. Go ahead, Dr. Rivera.
Thank you for having us. I mean, this is not, disclaimer, we're not being paid to talk about Aspen. We just love our jobs. We love the company, love the support we get. So I guess my final thought is show up and the magic will happen. Just keep showing up, be open to opportunities, reach out for help if you need. Don't be afraid to take a leap of faith. And that will take you a long way.
Cool. Thank you so much. You guys will be receiving some communication with our team here, Chelsea, Maggie, and some others. And we'll definitely send some follow-up information along with our contact information, and whatever you guys might need in the future, please just give us a ring, text, call, whatever. Again, Dr. Marco, Dr. Rivera, thank you very, very much. Thank you for my colleagues. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Have a good one.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.